So, who have I chosen to be the 2017 Scumbag of the Year award winner? After reading some of your nominations and why, I looked through them and I thought about this more on my own. And while James Comey or Jamie Dimon would have been great choices, I think, there's larger entities as bad as there's even more nefarious things at play. Truth is treason in the empire of lies. What Ron Paul and George Orwell have said about, what is truth, what is fact, it's becoming very difficult now with all the propaganda that we are given. I'm giving a 2017 Scumbag of the Year award winner co-winners. And so I'm nominating the big technology, social media companies, your Facebook, your Twitter, your Google, your YouTube, those guys, and then also the mainstream media. Those will be the co-winners. They will get the participation trophy because most of these companies are run by rich Democrat elitists, social justice warriors, and snowflakes who are unfairly targeting pro-Trump people, libertarians, and regular Republicans and conservatives throughout their social media platforms. And so these are stories just from the last week of things that the big technology social media companies, which in my opinion are monopolies. You could let me know in the comment section if you think they are monopolies and what we should do about them. They are definitely monopolies. Facebook and YouTube and Google combined have 99% of all the online advertising revenues. 99%. And yet, a lot of these, social media platforms, they allow ISIS terrorists, they allow domestic terrorist groups, like Antifa and others, and also pedophiles to not have their videos demonetized on YouTube, to continue to post freely on social media as a fear of offending, snowflakes offending people. And yet they go after, with their hypocrisy and double standards, someone who has a different opinion. So it's just really not fair. I know some people out there are calling for these big technology companies, which, by the way, are in bed with big government. You cannot have a monopoly with a free market. It has to be government protected. There are people calling out for these government regulations to step in, but I think that could potentially make things worse. Busting up trust didn't really do the great effect that the history books claim it did 100 years ago. With Teddy Roosevelt starting that, and then Taft, there was a lot of corruption involved, and Rockefeller and these other big trust guys like JP Morgan and stuff, they just, moved the assets around. It didn't really do much of any good. My personal opinion is start pulling their patents. So rather than having government bureaucrats who either are lazy, incompetent, don't know what they're doing, looking to try to figure out a scheme to get a higher paying job, and are willing to look the other way, as what happens in a lot of government agencies now in the United States, rather than having that with more regulation, because regulation for the most part really only works in theory. I would rather the patents be pulled for a lot of these big technology social media companies, and let's have more competition. So if you start threatening to pull their patents, maybe they'll start behaving. So if you start pulling their patents or let their patents expire and don't let them, because if you understand the intellectual property and the patent law, it's very expensive to file a lot of different patents. So the average entrepreneur, a lot of guys can't even really afford it. You have to go to investors. It can be expensive. Once you start getting patents, people want to buy you out. You can infringe on patents. It becomes a pain in the ass to do real entrepreneurship and innovation. My opinion is to start. I don't think in a full free, maybe in the past, hundreds of years ago, patents were necessary around the time of the founding fathers for like more physical goods, but I don't think patents and intellectual property and using government court system and a bunch of lawsuits and patent trolls and things like that, and government bureaucrats in the patent office and very expensive lawyers to enforce the patents is really having the right amount of entrepreneurship and innovation we have in that we need in society to really grow the economy and create more of a level playing field. I think, the patents and the IP creates a very unlevel playing field. Not that we'll ever have a fully level playing field, but I think, in my opinion, things would be better. So what do you think should be done about the big technology companies? Because they are unfairly targeting, libertarians, regular Republicans or conservatives, pro-Trump people. Very few of my followers even see my tweets now. Twitter has, a new policy in effect where they're trying to monitor your offline behavior, and if you're aligned with the wrong groups, they can just subjectively kick you off. It's, double standards and hypocrisy. Look at what happened with Rosie O'Donnell and many others. She probably would have been kicked off Twitter if she was a Republican saying any of that stuff. Roger Stone, Charles Johnson, so many, Julian Assange was even temporarily kicked off of Twitter. So I could go on and on about these examples. These stories that I have here are only from the last week. And the other one is the mainstream media. The mainstream media, they are a bunch of political hacks now. I don't know if it was always this way. I think things have changed a lot over the last couple decades. I think there were more Republicans in the mainstream media a few decades ago, and I think, it's gotten worse and worse to where they've been weeded out or kicked out or fired or whatever. And so by the mainstream media, I mean the most biased, and it's okay to be biased, but you should disclose it. Stop trying to pretend like CNN that you are objective, unbiased news. Okay? Stop. Please stop. And the one Republican that CNN has is Anna Navarro. Oh my God. Just that lady's awful. And so, the mainstream media in 2017, and this is why I think they've been worse than previous years, as bad as the mainstream media has been for a while. Since I woke up, the mainstream media has been bad. But it really seems in 2017 that they tried every day, whether it was the Washington Post, the New York Times, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, and MSNBC. Those are some of the main culprits, that the thought leaders in the group. They tried every single day, basically, since President Trump has taken, his inauguration for basically a year now, is to try to come up with new ways every single day to get him impeached. And there's a lot of mainstream media journalists, and I'm using air quotes, journalists on Twitter with blue check marks, who, if you disagree with them now on Twitter and you try to lay out a rational, logical argument with evidence proving your case that they're wrong about something, then instead of, having a rational debate or something like that, instead what happens is you basically just get labeled a racist, a sexist, or a Nazi now. And I'm not saying every person in the mainstream media does this, but a lot of them do this now. And so I don't ever remember things being this bad. A while ago, things have it seems 2017 has been a culmination of things where the mainstream media has just kept doubling down. The mainstream media has protected rapists, pervert, serial sexual harassers, whether it's Harvey Weinstein or Matt Lauer, the Young Turks. I mean, there's so many of these. There's just so many. But thankfully, I do see some light at the end of the tunnel. There is starting to be some pushback now, but this is just the beginning of basically, a new age in alt media. And I obviously don't agree with a lot of stuff in the alt media. There's too much hyperbole about China's good on everything, and there's going to be a gold standard immediately. I love gold and silver still, but not the mainstream media, the alt media, and the alt media has been wrong, claiming every story means that the economy is going to collapse. A lot of people in the media, alt media, have claimed this. You have to have an open mind, and you can't believe really anyone's source anymore. And unfortunately, there's still a lot of people who do believe in that. But we are starting to see finally more competition. So you have your Gab.AI, which is solid. And I believe if you're a content creator on there now, and you're verified Gab.AI user, you can get paid for your content creator for uploading there. So that's a good solution. I believe they just raised a couple $1 million in private capital through crowdsourcing, and I think they're doing an initial coin offering. So, I don't like a lot of the initial coin offerings, but this would be one of the others. Do you guys know why? Because the founder, Andrew Torba, who supported Trump during the campaign process in the election, when he came out in Silicon Valley as not being a hardcore Democrat, they kicked him out. They blacklisted him. So this would be a situation where, he needs an alternative source to raise capital because he's intentionally being blacklisted. He's not going to be, if he wanted to, he probably couldn't get a job in the technology industry. It would probably be very difficult for him, or he'd have to sign some type of clause in his contract where if he spoke out publicly, he could be fired pretty quickly. So you have Gab.AI, you have the Commodity Ad Network, which is pretty interesting, from Steve St. Angelo and his business partner there. And then you have Steemit, which is doing pretty darn well since the cryptocurrency boom or bubble. The bubble could last a lot longer. I'm not predicting a crash in cryptocurrency anytime soon, but Steemit has definitely benefited. So if you're a content creator, you can upload to Steemit and you can make some money, although you're not going to be able to replace the income that you would have lost from YouTube or Google totally screwing over your website. like reducing it in search. I've heard stories from people, either directly from people who have lost $100,000 a year in income, or from people who have friends who have lost that type of money, where just YouTube or Google just decided you're a rabble rouser, we don't agree with what you're saying, boom, you're cut off. And so, there's nothing fair about this. And Steemit is giving you an alternative, and DTube is another. DTube is something my listeners just told me about recently. I tried searching for DTube, and I have DuckDuckGo. I don't have Google, but it did not come up in search. I looked through multiple pages. It was blocked. I looked multiple search terms for DTube, and I could not find it. Very, very peculiar that it's being blocked. Maybe YouTube and Google are paying to block it for the other search engines. Just very weird, considering how many people are on it now and trying to make some money creating their content. But this is just a handful of the alternative content creators that are trying to fill the vacuum and void. So if they're going to screw over libertarians, if they're going to screw over pro-Trump people, they're going to screw over regular Republicans and conservatives, but they're going to not target, hardcore left groups nearly as much. I don't hear a lot of stories of people from Antifa and Black Lives Matter getting their YouTube channels demonetized and their channels removed without any type of warning and strikes and things. I don't hear that. And, there was still a bunch of pedophile videos that were making a lot of money in ad revenue. So these agencies are totally hypocritical. And the mainstream media has even still been writing articles about how pedophilia is not as bad as it sounds. It's totally hypocritical, double standards, and totally ridiculous. So what are your views about this? Do you think in the next couple years that new competition and entrepreneurship is going to fill the void from the big technology social media companies, especially for content creators like me, who have worked their ass off to build up a channel, and then have seen a lot of their financial livelihoods taken away within a couple months? It's just totally ridiculous. So what are your opinions on this? Do you agree with my 2017 Scumbag of the Year award winners? That's the big technology social media companies and the mainstream media in a joint co-participation trophy award. And who do you guys think I should give the Lifetime Achievement Award to?